Many photographers don't have a direction. Today, I'm a portrait photographer, wedding photographer. Next tomorrow, I'm a beauty photographer. Next, I'm a lifestyle photographer. Just anything that brings the money in. For you to be jack of all trades and master of all, it requires a lot of work. I'm not saying it is impossible. It is not impossible, because we have some photographers that have proved themselves. We have some artists that have proved themselves in different genres of art. The more you do is the more you know. The more you practice is the more you know. There is absolutely no other technique that is going to give you a shortcut towards knowing photography and understanding or creating what you intend to create more than practicing. What today's class is going to be about is about how you see. So the reason why we're having this class is more like we're going back to the basics, and that is because I have accessed. You shot the last wedding, yeah? I went through both your pictures, you understand? And I still believe we have a problem with sight, with the way we see. Do you understand? So there's no way we're going to get the best out of photographing anyone if we can't see. Sight is the major part of photography. So if you can't even visualize, that is, if you can't even see it in your head, you can't imagine it in your head, there's no way that is going to, like, you'll be able to put out really good stuff. How to see as a photographer. Seeing as a photographer is you visualizing in your head first before even putting out, like before even holding your camera. You understand? A lot of photographers right now, what we do is we first of all hold our cameras before we see. But that is not how it's meant to be. It's meant to be the other way around. You're meant to first see before you hold your camera. So the reason why I'm saying you have to first see before you hold your camera is because a lot of people are just like impulsive shooters. They just shoot, you understand, and hope to get the best. But is that actually the way to go? No, it's not. The reason why I'm saying this now is because if as a photographer you do is just pick up the camera and hit the shutter button to get a shot, it doesn't make you a photographer. It just makes you someone that owns or has access to a camera. Am I correct? Do you understand? But the fact that you're able to ideate and think and realize that, okay, this is the particular creative direction that I want to head to. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to create. And this is how I want the image to speak to whoever is seeing that image, whoever is viewing that image. That is what now translates me from being someone who just has possession of a camera and who knows how to click a shutter button to being a photographer. Do you understand? First of all, you have to first know that photography is art. Is it possible now for an artist to pick up a blank canvas and then without any direction he just starts? Can you imagine it? That's a disaster waiting to happen. Do you understand? If you mess around in this world where we have like people doing some kind of like weird art forms, maybe that would suffice. But for a real artist, when I say real artist now, I mean people who understand and know what they are doing. You first have to have a creative direction. Take for instance, I'm an artist and I want to draw somebody. I want to draw a person. I first need to know if I'm drawing a man or a woman. Do I start drawing a person and then I don't have a direction whether it's a man or a woman I'm drawing? Do you understand? I just start without knowing whether I'm drawing a man, I'm drawing a woman. I just start and I hope to arrive at something. But that is the way most photographers actually act these days. So, how to see? A photographer first has to see in his head and with his imagination, if you want to add that to it, before seeing with his eyes and or his camera. So the reason why this is because the moment you tell yourself that, okay, I'm going to just shoot and however the outcome is, I'll be okay with it, it first of all takes you 10 steps back as a photographer. So what I mean now is, before, as a wedding photographer, before I step into a room and I want to take a picture of a bride, I should already have in my head that I would want to create. This doesn't just happen automatically, you know. It doesn't just happen automatically. You don't just have like pictures already laid out in your head. It's a process and you grow your mind to begin to think in that direction. Do you get? So The first thing you should know as a photographer on how to see, first of all, in your head before seeing with your camera or seeing with your eyes is, first of all, you have to train your mind. So it's more of you engaging your mind to understand what you want to create. So there are different steps in understanding or knowing how to see as a photographer, and I'm going to just be listing the different steps and ways in which you can see better, or in which you can first see in your head and then you see with your camera or with your eyes. The first way that you can see in your head before seeing in your mind, first of all, you have to first understand the kind of photographer that you are. So this is where a lot of photographers have it mixed up. Many photographers don't have a direction. Today I'm a portrait photographer, tomorrow I'm a wedding photographer, next tomorrow I'm a beauty photographer, next the day after that I'm a lifestyle photographer, just anything that brings the money in. But does that actually make you an artist? No, it doesn't. There's a common saying that jack of all trades, master of none. You can be jack of all trades and master of some, but for you to be jack of all trades and master of all, it requires a lot of work. I'm not saying it is impossible. It is not impossible, because we have some photographers that have proved themselves. We have some artists that have proved themselves in different genres of art. Do you understand? But you cannot tell yourself that you want to just start out as a photographer. Now, speaking to upcoming photographers, people that want to establish themselves as photographers, you first have to understand and know the direction that you are headed as a photographer. You have to know that this is the artist that I want to be. And if you understand and know that this is the artist I want to be, then you can know how to better tailor your mind in the direction of what you want to be. So take, for instance, I'll use myself for an example. So I have love for wedding photography, and I did not just stumble on it. I discovered in my journey through life that I was just drawn more towards stuff that has to do with love. Personally, as a person, like I would just naturally just drift towards something that is naturally like exuding of love. Do you understand? Take, for instance, maybe I see a couple and I see their pictures. I would naturally be drawn more to that than to a beauty portrait. Do you get? So like my mind is already tailored towards that. So first of all, the first step is discovering who you are as a photographer, where you want to be, which type of artist do you want to be. The next step now is, after discovering yourself, the next step is now tailoring your mind to know and to become what you ought to become for you to create what you want to create. So I'll just explain what I mean by that. How you tailor your mind is basically by what you feed your mind. Do you understand? I hope we all know that our mind is as material as our human body. Do we know? Yeah? Do you know the human mind? Can you point to where your mind is in your body? Can't, but that's not your mind, that's your brain. Pointing physically, that's your brain. Your mind is physically non-existent. But do you know that your mind is as material and is as physical as your human body? So this just the same way you require food to eat to be alive, that is the way your mind requires food to keep running. I don't know whether you understand. Whether you feed it intentionally or unintentionally is not the business. Hope you know that whether you force yourself to eat, whether they force the food into your mouth, whether you eat with your hand, I hope you know that the aim is still being achieved. You are getting full. Do you understand? So for you to actually be the artist that you want to be, first of all, you have to understand that you have to tailor your mind in a certain way, to think a certain way, for you to produce some certain type of result. And it all stems from the way and what you feed your mind. Take, for instance, you're a photographer and all you do is watch and listen to and consume contents that are non-artistic, contents that are just normal, the barest minimum. Maybe you're watching like, no shades to old Hollywood movies now, they've quite improved. Do you understand? But where it was before, all those Alaba international market production, do you understand? Those were fantastic for the time that it was. But if you continue watching all of those right now as a photographer and as an artist, I hope you know that you're not growing. And I hope that it's only a matter of time before you discover that you will just phase out of the market and nobody would even be in need of what you have to offer. Why? Because you're not putting stuff that inspires your mind in front of you. You're not feeding your mind right. It now brings the question, how do you feed your mind? How do you feed your mind? So there are several steps, and I'll give you personal steps how I use what I do to feed my mind. To feed your mind as a photographer, the first thing you should do is consume what you want to produce. I'll give a scriptural reference to this, and it's the scripture where the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. You know that scripture? As a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. Another scripture says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So you cannot speak what has not been playing in your mind. I hope you know that for everyone that does any wrong thing, maybe like a murderer, I hope you know that that thought, or maybe someone that steals, I hope you know that that thought was first conceived in the mind before it was brought into the physical. There is no such thing as a thief that just stole without the mind working on something. I don't know whether you understand. There's no such thing as somebody that's murdered someone. I'm using negative stuff now because like it's more relatable in our day and age. Do you understand? There's nobody that maybe say slap someone and then does not conceive the thoughts that I should actually hit this person. As a man thinks in his heart, so he is. If you think, then you produce. If you don't think, then you don't produce. It's just like it's opposites. It's like word and opposite. You understand? If you think it, you produce. If you don't think it, you don't produce. Do you understand? So how you feed your mind first is what you feed it. And by feeding it now is, number one, what did I say? I said intentionally put stuff in front of you that you want to create. Consume what you want to create. If you can't consume what you want to create, there's no point. Do you understand? Because in the end, you will only be wishing to produce that, but you will not eventually translate into producing that. In fact, you will produce what you feel like is close to that, but most of the times it will not be in any way close to that. I'll just give you an example. For myself, what I do is I have a list of photographers that I have their notification turned on my phone, that whatever I'm doing, aside prayer though, whatever I'm doing, and I see their notification pop up on my phone. If I'm not shooting, I'm not praying, I'm not in a meeting, I'm checking that post. Do you know why? Because I already know that where they as an artist is where I hope to be and even be more than what they do already. So I want to position myself in a place and at a point where I can fully tell myself that I have consumed enough of this content and now it is finding expression in the way I express my art. Do you get? I'll use one of my favorite photographers as an example now. So I think I love the works of Malay Photos. I love the works of Fire and Ice. I love the works of Louis Sears. I love his works. In fact, if you go to my page and then you check most of my works, it looks like I picked it directly from the page and posted it on my page. But I don't exactly replicate what I see on those pages. If you check, I make adjustments to whatever I learn from them, because that does it will just make me someone that plagiarizes that like maybe replicates the work of another artist. It doesn't make me an original artist, but I pick inspiration from these pages and I tell myself that these images are what I want to create, but then I have to infuse myself in it. I have to infuse my personal thoughts in it. I have to infuse who Belac is as a person, as a brand. Do you understand? What we want people to feel, how we want people to see us. Do you understand? I infuse all of that into the pictures and then it's now a whole new art. So when you see it, you just know that there's just something that looks similar to this particular person, but you cannot really pinpoint what it is. Is it the color? Is it the way I pose? Is it the way I even talk to clients? I learned that from Fire and Ice. So yeah, the creative director, is it the creative director now or Chris? If you follow Fire and Ice, you should know Chris. I think he's the one that has the company or something, or is the head creative there. The way he speaks to clients, the way he's able to engage the minds of clients, and then like it transcends like the picture he's taking. He's actually giving them an experience as an artist. When he's creating now, he's just giving them by what he says, the way he talks, the way he hypes his bride. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. Like, he basically gives like a whole experience. It's similar to maybe when you pay to have like therapy, or when you pay to have like massages. These are services that are like you pay for them to receive them. But now you're paying for a picture, and you're not just getting a picture, you're getting the experience. Like, you are feeling good about yourself while taking that picture. It is all a form of art. Do you understand? So you first have to consume what you want to create. It is impossible for you, absolutely impossible for you, to say you want to create before you consume. I don't know whether you understand. Like, it's just like you want to eat the ingredients. Do you understand? You want to eat the ingredients of a particular food. So take, for instance, you want to make jollof rice now. You now get all the green peas, the what? Call it for me. Maggi, salt, pepper, and the rest. Do you understand? You get all of those and you just start eating it. Are you eating jollof rice? Will it even serve the purpose of jollof rice? No. What about if you put it, like maybe the same quantity you would have put in the pot? What if you now put all the ingredients together and you start pouring it in your mouth? It's poison to you. So it is almost impossible for you to create before you consume. So the way it works is you consume first before you create. This spans the shooting aspect, spans the way you relate to clients, every aspect. You have to look at photography as an art. It is actually an art. Do you understand? So that is how you actually train your mind. That is how you train your mind. The next step on how to see as a wedding photographer, I hope you know that everyone is not going to be a wedding photographer. Everyone is not going to be a portrait photographer. There's a whole world of photography to explore. A whole world. And contrary to the idea that there's a certain part of photography that pays more, imagine shooting for Nat Geo Wide. He said, damn, yeah, that's a lot of bucks. Imagine shooting like for top brands like Giorgio Armani, product shoots now. Shooting for Fenty Beauty, shooting their products. Do you understand? Louis Vuitton. So imagine shooting product photography for those guys. What about shooting pets? That's a whole, do you know some people can give anything for their pets? Maybe not in Nigeria. So like what I'm just saying now is like there's like a whole world of photography to explore. And if you don't explore that world, you're cheating yourself. The fact that someone that is tutoring you is a wedding photographer, portrait photographer, what else? Event photographer, and then you now cheat yourself because you may have the potential to be one of the greatest product photographers, and if you don't explore it and then you keep chasing and running in the wrong direction and chasing after wedding photography or portrait photography, I hope you know you will never hit your full potential. We digressed for a bit, but we're back now. So the next thing we're going to be talking about, after feeding your mind, after consuming what you ought to consume as a photographer, the next step is you have to identify your originality as an artist. Identify your originality as an artist. So identifying your originality as an artist is somewhat similar to discovering who you are as a photographer, right? But the previous point was for you to consume to create. So what this is saying to you now is that you consume to create but not replicate. So that is what we have flooding the whole photography space at the moment. You pick a pose from someone, you pick a lighting setup from the same person, the same picture, and you want to create exactly that particular thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. You can be inspired, but it does not exactly translate into bringing out your originality as a photographer or as an artist. Who's a famous artist now? Lindsay Adler. Let's use her. She's one of my very favorite portrait photographers. Very good. For someone like Lindsay Adler, if I pick the works of Lindsay Adler and I want to replicate or I want to create something like what Lindsay Adler will create, I hope you know that I can't create a Lindsay Adler portrait better than Lindsay Adler. But what I can do is I can create, using inspiration from Lindsay Adler and the originality of me as an artist, to create something that is totally new and not. I hope you know that as an artist, your work doesn't even have to be new for it to be artistic or for it to be your own. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't have to invent what you want to create. You just have to put your intentionality, you have to put your originality into a particular piece for it to become yours. As far as you're not committing plagiarism, you're not copying somebody's work, you can actually be inspired by other artists and then infuse some elements of their art into yours to create. But what we have now, what is going on now, right now, is that we have quite a lot of photographers that are creating pictures, making videos to look exactly the same way as the people that they hope to be like, and then failing to understand that you cannot exceed a certain level copying people. It's just like I'm trying to create a Kelechi Amadiobi's picture. I won't say I will create something close to it, but I would not create, even if I create something that is close to it, I will not create it like Kelechi would. But my superpowers as an artist and as a photographer is actually creating my own thing, so that when somebody wants to replicate my own thing, I will be able to beat my chest and say, this person can create this, but this person cannot create it the way I would create it. That's why you see a lot of people, they'll just hop on different pages now. So now that I said consume what you want to create, a lot of people will hop on different pages, they'll screenshots, and then maybe probably when they have a wedding or something, then they make that exact same pose. Very soon, I know you know, like a wedding trended recently, Mr. Easy and Temi Otedola. I hope you know that very soon we'll see some photographers trying to replicate the work of Jose Villa. But can you create like Jose Villa will? Would you have the same location? They shot in Iceland, yeah? Would you have the same location, or would you have the luxury of shooting in the same location? Even if you do, you may not create with the same angles. You don't see the same way. First of all, that's what you're meant to know as a photographer. You don't first see in the same way. And since you don't see in the same way, you cannot create in the same way. I hope you know that if I tell the three of you to describe me in one sentence, I hope you know you're going to say different stuff. It may be similar, but you're going to say absolutely different stuff. So that is the way your mind and your eyes work. When we step out of this place now, probably if we step out now, I ask you to look out the window, and then I tell you that, okay, what can you see? The first thing your eyes will see is not the first thing your eyes will see, or his eyes will see. So the way you see is quite different from the way they see. So instead of having to replicate the works of another, that is making your own work second best to what the original person did, why not find the originality in what you do and infuse the elements of what you want to create, or who you want to be, from those people who you want to copy, or from those people who you intend to be like. Infuse elements of what they do into your own stuff. I think that is a good bargain. Now, the last point I'm going to be speaking on is execution. Once you have consumed in your mind, you've discovered who you are as an artist, then you've been able to tailor your mind to consume or to create what you intend to create. You've been able to identify your originality. The next step is execution. I hope you know that all these other steps, without good execution, I hope you know, is equal to zero. If you cannot properly execute, you can only maybe you only see it in your mind, and maybe you can't translate it into how you want it to look like. I hope you know it's equal to zero. You're not achieving anything there. The first step in execution is the technical aspect. Do you understand? As a photographer, you can create from your heart. But if you don't even have the technical know-how to create from your heart, I hope you know that you're not heading anywhere. Take for instance, now you've consumed, you've done everything right. Now all the other steps that has been listed, you've done every single thing right, and then you've consumed the right stuff to create the right stuff. You've discovered who you are as an artist, you've identified your originality, and then it comes to the part of execution, and then you just don't know how to work your camera to shoot what you intend to shoot. Is all equal to zero. Is all equal to zero. I'm going to give you steps in execution, what to do to execute properly. The question is, how do I execute properly? Now, following all these other steps, I've been able to see with my mind. How do I now see with my camera and translate it into an art form, or translate it into pictures, videos, and whatever you want to create? So I'll give you different steps or different pointers as to how to execute. The first step is understanding your camera, knowing how to use your camera. So this sounds like a really basic stuff. This sounds quite elementary. I understand my camera, I can increase my ISO, work my aperture, I can do a couple of things here and there. But you not knowing how to use your camera, it's more than just your ISO settings and your exposure triangle as a whole. So take for instance, the like of Louis Sears, one of my favorite photographers. He's majorly a portrait and a lifestyle photographer. He creates pictures that looks very warm. Do you understand? It has this tone to it that looks like there's always a sunset somewhere. How is he able to create that? Most times, you don't always have a sunset. In fact, so most times, you don't always have a sunset. For the most part, like during the day, do you have sunset? Like from morning till afternoon, do you have sunset? So if you want to create for it to look like a sunset, how do you then do it? If you want to create inside of a room and it looks like there's a sunset that is coming from outside and then it's totally dark outside, it maybe it's past 8 p.m. and you want to create something that relates to sunset, or you want it to have that Louis Sears feel, you want it to have that warm tone feel. You creating then is like you have a blank canvas now as an artist, and then you're trying to make something out of that blank canvas. So when you have that blank canvas as an artist, so if you have like a blank canvas as a photographer, how do you then translate it? I hope you know that you have to be able to understand how the color temperature on your camera works. So take for instance, you don't have a sunset, it's a gloomy day, you don't have a sunset. I hope you know it's possible for you to create to look like if there was a sunset. By knowing how to work your light, your gels, by knowing how to set your cameras, by knowing how to even give the moody feel to pictures. His pictures are usually very dark. So if you shoot an image and it's overly bright, I hope you know you would not create what he creates. So this as an artist is one part that you cannot miss. You have to understand your gadget, you have to understand your gear, you have to understand your camera. So the first point in this is understanding your camera or your gears. The next point is you have to translate your mind vision to be like what is in your mind. And how do you do that? You do that by actually practicing. I hope you know that this is one of the best tips that anyone can ever give you in photography. The more you do is the more you know. The more you practice is the more you know. There is absolutely no other technique that is going to give you a shortcut towards knowing photography and understanding or creating what you intend to create more than practicing. And this is where a lot of upcoming photographers actually miss it. They just want to jump right from like the ideating phase to creating what they want to create. But remember, many artists, before they become who they want to be, there will be many failed canvases that will be stored up somewhere that has failed art projects. Do you understand? There will be many photographers that have a whole shoot, like a whole shoot that was made, and then the entire shoot, like none of the pictures were used. What most photographers actually want to do is, or what most photographers actually do now is they consume and they hope to create. You don't hope to create as a photographer. It's either you know it or you don't know it. Do you get? It's either you know it or you don't know it. I hope you know that if you can't figure out, like, or if you don't know what to do, no matter the amount of gear and no matter the fancy gear you have, I hope you know that it's all equal to zero. That it won't amount to your pictures being more beautiful, your videos being more beautiful. So the thing here now is, the best advice that you can be giving as a photographer is the more you practice is the more you know. The more you do is the more you know. So you have to bring yourself to a point where you just tell yourself that since I have fully consumed this content, I need to start practicing before show day or before on how to deliver this particular type of work. Because if you don't practice beforehand and you hope to create, maybe you have consumed and then you just head out. In fact, you have like a very beautiful mood board and then you just head out to a shoot. I hope you know that you'll be stuck. Most times you will be stuck. And if you're being honest, most people here have been stuck. Like, it's not like you did not know what to create at that time. It's not like you did not know what to create, but it's just how to bring it out of you that you don't know how to. And you fail to understand that behind every successful artist, there are many failed canvases, many canvases that were stopped halfway, many ruined canvases that were there. You understand? Many photographers, like behind every good photographer, you'll see that they have so many works that they've done that never made it up to their timeline. And then they created those stuffs. And then those stuffs were now the building blocks. They were like a ladder that the photographer or the artist, those canvases were the ladder that the photographer or the artist used in climbing up to the top. But many upcoming artists want to, or many upcoming photographers actually want to skip the process of actually climbing to the top by practicing and making those errors and correcting themselves. And they just want to hope to create, so they ideate, make a very beautiful mood board, and then they go to a shoot and then flop. It doesn't just work like that. If you see someone that is going to be a successful artist, someone that's going to be a successful photographer, best believe that person would always have a thing for learning, would always have a thing for practicing. Consistency. You have to be consistent in creating. It is when you're consistent in creating, that is when you first even know, like you start creating, you first even identify the problems that you face while shooting. I hope you know that for every photographer, there's always a problem while shooting. Maybe there's, like, for every upcoming photographer, there's maybe a problem or two while shooting that you would experience. Take, for instance, one of the problems I identify with you is having to place your lights. Another problem I've identified with you is second guessing yourself. Same with you. You second guess yourself a lot. So you're meant to ask yourself, how do I not second guess myself? How do I not second guess my light setup? I hope you know that if you don't second guess yourself, I hope you know that the light I can set, or the light you see me set over a period of time, I hope you know that you can actually make and set those lights. But the fact that you second guess yourself most at times, it just makes you feel like, okay, I need to be vetted to know whether I'm doing the right thing or I'm not doing the right thing. So when you shoot consistently and when you practice consistently, you then know, you identify the problems. Take, for instance, maybe you're shooting outdoors and you discover that having to shoot high-speed sync, having to shoot with like harsh lighting is a problem for you. I hope you know is when you discover a problem, that is when you can start identifying the solution to the problem. If you don't even have the ability to discover a problem, the solution is very far away from you. So practice, shoot. Always have a mind to learn. There's never an artist that doesn't have more to learn. And how do you learn? YouTube videos, it's totally free. YouTube videos, master classes, listening to photographers speak. There are several upcoming photographers that the only talk or the only type of conversations that they listen to are conversations that has to do with every other thing except photography. So in a whole 24 hours, they don't even talk about photography for up to 20 minutes. In 24 hours, do you want to, like, am I lying? When your friends, when they're talking about, like, when you talk about football, you can talk about it for 4 hours, 5 hours, right? When you talk about, like, maybe when you want to talk about like other stuff, you talk about it for 4-5 hours, but then you don't even talk about photography. So your conversation is not even throughout the whole day. Your mind is not even dwelling on photography. How many people have done a test shoot in the past 1 month? A test shoot, you were not paid. You were not paid. They did not pay you. And I'm not saying regardless of whether you have a camera or not, like you just held your phone and you said, today I would love to take a picture of a plant. And I would love to take it in an artistic way. There are certain things I create right now that I never knew. In fact, I did not know when I learned them. It was the tiny building blocks, the tiny practices, those shoots, those models that I was shooting. Most of the times, and for sometimes it feels like maybe I know what I'm doing at the moment when I'm doing it, but most of the times I don't know what I'm doing at the moment that I'm doing it, and that is the honest truth. I'm using that particular moment to practice so that when it's show day, when I have that brand reach out to me, when I have that particular big gig that I have to prove myself, I am now prepared to execute. And the last part of execution, after your gear, your cameras, your lights, and practice, you feel you correct yourself. The next part is you have to be calm as a photographer to get it. When I mean you have to be calm as a photographer, you have to forgive yourself for not getting it. Do you know what most people do? Most upcoming photographers, what they do is when they try it and try it and try it and they see that it's not working, they drop it. I hope you know that if that was the idea of the person who made the light bulb, I hope you know that we would not have a light bulb today. But it's the fact that the person who made the light bulb knew that he had to keep at it and he had to remain consistent in doing what he had to do. And that is the result. That is why we have everywhere bright. That is why we have this bulb lit. So be able to forgive yourself for not creating exactly what you want to create, and then train yourself to keep at it. It is somewhat like a branch of the practicing, yeah? But this now is forgiving yourself as an artist for not reaching up to the standard to which you want to reach, and then keeping at it, remaining consistent even when the results are not showing. That is how to see as a photographer. That is how to see with your mind before seeing with your eyes or your camera.